Hi folks, it is time for the new moon in Scorpio video. It is in fact more than time. The new moon in Scorpio occurred a little over 12 hours ago. I used to do my new moon videos after the new moon, so here it is. I really wasn't intending to do that this time. I was intending to get the new moon in Scorpio video out yesterday, but the week was what it was. And I got the Mars opposite Pluto video out yesterday, and it is time to talk about the new moon in Scorpio. Now, as a reference, a broad general reference for this video, I did a few videos ago talk about the transits of the personal planets through the sign of Scorpio, and that will provide a backdrop, and even through Sagittarius, and those two videos will provide a backdrop for this one. So if you haven't seen those, or if you need to expand on any of the themes I talk about in this video, those would be resources. I also talked about this new moon in the weekly overview we did last. Tomorrow is Saturday, and the plan of the intention tomorrow, I'm going to see whether it makes more sense for me to do the weekly overview or do the overview related to November. So one of the two is going to get worked on tomorrow. New moon in Scorpio trine Saturn in Pisces. And the 5 aspects that are encoded into this new moon, I really should say 4, for some people 5, are Mercury in Scorpio, also trining Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer opposing Pluto in Capricorn. We talked about that yesterday. Venus in Sagittarius, trining Chiron in Aries, and Venus in Sagittarius opposing Jupiter in Gemini. And Mars getting ready to conjunct the North Node in a couple of weeks' time. He enters Leo on November the 4th, and is gonna, at the time of the new moon, he was a little over 5 degrees away, and I was just like, shall I include him or shall I not? And I was just like, no, just include him, because the themes are still very much the same around Mars in Cancer, trining the planets moving through Scorpio, and both those planets trining Neptune and Pisces in Saturn, these water sign trines that are encoded into November, because the new moon in November will exercise his influence. The month of Scorpio starts today, November the 1st, and will continue till November the 30th, when the new moon in Sagittarius occurs and the month of Sagittarius takes over. And this is why I did the video on the Scorpio transits, but also the Sagittarius transits, because what we've also got is a developing set of trines between Venus, and then once Mercury enters Sag and the Sun enters Sag, trining the North Node from Sagittarius, and Chiron from Sagittarius, which Venus is getting ready to do, and Mars also trining the North Node when he is in Leo. Mars goes retrograde on December the 4th, I think, or December 4th or 6th, and then is going to trine the North Node again when he's retrograde at that time. That's going to be, so he's basically moving past his opposition to Pluto on November the 3rd, and after that, the next 2 aspects that he's going to make are trining the North Node once direct, and then after he goes retrograde once more before he starts to move back into Cancer by January. And from there, actually, as he trines the North Node, I think it's like literally on consecutive days. He trines the North Node, I think, on like January the 3rd, and on January the 4th, he opposes. Shall I get you that information again? Why not? We covered that yesterday. Fun to do. And then I'll come back to this new moon in Scorpio. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hold your horses, everyone. Hold your horses. Hold them in place. Whatever. Yeah, Mars trines the North Node on January the 2nd. January 3rd opposes Pluto, and I think it's on January the 4th he enters back into Cancer. So the next, after the opposition to Pluto on November the 3rd, he trines the North Node on November the 17th, and then reverses on December the 6th, and on January the 2nd trines the North Node again, and opposes Pluto on January the 3rd. Okay, so new moon in Scorpio trines Saturn in Pisces, 5 aspects. Mercury in Scorpio trining Mars in Cancer, and both Mercury and Mars are just off they're trine to Neptune. So that's not part of this particular, it's just happened. What's completing is Mercury's trine to Mars. And I think that's like tomorrow, day after. It's very, very close at this point in time. And here. Mercury trines Mars tomorrow, November the 2nd. And Mercury enters Sagittarius tomorrow, November the 2nd. So he is getting ready to trine the North Node soon too. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he trines the North Node before Mars does at the speed at which Mercury is going right now, although he's starting to slow down. Mars opposite Pluto, November the 3rd. Venus opposite Jupiter, November the 3rd. Venus trine Chiron on November the 3rd. So the 5 aspects encoded into the North Node in Scorpio: Mercury trine Mars tomorrow, Mars opposite Pluto, November 3rd, Venus opposite Jupiter, November 3rd, Venus trine Chiron, November the 3rd. And the other one I'm sort of including is the 5th, which happens on November the 17th, is Mars trining the North Node, because they're a little over 5 degrees apart. Okay. Here's the gist of the new moon in Scorpio. Venus went over Scorpio between September 23rd and October the 17th. Mercury went over Scorpio October the 13th to tomorrow. When Venus went over Scorpio September 23rd to October 17th, she did 2 things. She either did both of these or one of these for you. She asked the question, is everything in the Scorpio part of the chart, the house occupied by Scorpio in your chart, aligned with where you're trying to go? And is it especially aligned when trying to get the Pisces part of the chart in order? Is it especially aligned with supporting Saturn in stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart? In making us take matters related to the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces in our chart, in taking matters related to that part of the chart seriously and responsibly, with an eye to our well-being and the fulfillment of our highest potential. This could mean organization, structure, tackling what we have neglected, dealing with karmic consequences, looking facts in the face, setting boundaries where we need to, watching our own actions and intentions, making sure that things don't get worse if they are problematic in the Pisces part of the chart. The second thing that Venus does when she goes through a certain part of the chart is she asks and says, she provides opportunities. She plants seeds. She provides solutions. She makes things easier. Blessings, financial opportunities, relationship opportunities, job opportunities, sort of greasing the wheel. Artistic, creative, beautification, Venusian. Mercury, when he entered October the 13th till tomorrow, placed matters related to the Scorpio part of the chart, the house occupied by Scorpio in the chart where we had a new moon earlier today, into the mental and the communicative realm. What shall I do? What is out of alignment? How do I bring it into alignment? What do I need to do in order to support the Pisces part of the chart from the Scorpio part of the chart? What needs to be, how can matters related to the Scorpio part of the chart help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart? How can I avail of, through communication, through either mental cognition and processing and thinking about things, or through written communication, verbal communication, start to process and transact on matters related to the Scorpio part of the chart, to both bring them into alignment with where I want to go and help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. Remember, the Pisces part of the chart since 2012 has been hosting Neptune, which may have either wanted you in the Pisces part of the chart to move in a more creative or spiritual direction, or Neptune's other influence is to get you to renounce or sacrifice things in the Pisces part of the chart, because ultimately they're not really there for your highest good, or there could be a karmic reason to release something related to the Pisces part of it. But very often Neptune will then achieve those aims through Neptunian influences. Loss, theft, deception, murky stuff. The bottom line, and that the crisis in Pisces, as I've referred to, may have peaked. A lot of you have heard me say this, 2014, 15, but especially 16, 17. Saturn came into Pisces March 23, going, all right, enough. We bring the Pisces part of the chart. We make things clear that Neptune has been making foggy. We put some structure around creative, artistic goals, or spiritual goals, or renunciatory goals, or and anything that has been murky or been creating loss. We reach compromises. We understand what has been going on, and we draw boundaries where we need to draw boundaries. And especially with Neptune going through Pisces, the Pisces part of the chart, it could also be that we ourselves have been unable to tackle. A lot of people think that Saturn and Jupiter are the planets that are opposite each other. I find Saturn and Neptune are the planets that are really opposite each other. Saturn is very much about success and effectiveness in 3D reality, in time-space reality. And Neptune is very much about dissolving 3D reality and connecting us to what is real. And herein lies this difference between Saturn and Neptune. Saturn is clear about what is real, is what you see, what you feel, the karmic results you get on planet Earth, your security, good feels good, bad feels bad, no delusion, no BS. And Neptune is all about whatever you think is real is not real, everything is connected, everything is spiritual, nothing is yours. The real is the real, and Saturn's like, whatever. So Neptune's transit through Pisces could have made us, it could have made us handle matters related to the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces. Some people could very well look at our behaviors in that part of the chart and say that we've been irresponsible. We have not tackled matters related to the Pisces part of the chart. We've not handled them. We have not put detail, effort, clarity, we have not made it enough of a priority to keep things in order. And Saturn's presence in Pisces for March 2023 is on various fronts, depending on what's going on in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart. Saturn is stabilizing it. And the personal planets, Venus, Mercury, the Sun, this new moon, among other aspects that they've made through the Scorpio part of the chart as they've transited through the Scorpio part of the chart. The Sun is only about a week into his annual transit through the Scorpio part of the chart. As of tomorrow, Mercury will have entered Sagittarius, leaving only the Sun behind. But it is a new moon today, trine Saturn. And that new moon trines Saturn with a Mercury trining Mars in the water signs, having just come off that trine for Neptune. That pattern, that question, is everything in the house occupied by Scorpio in your chart in alignment with where you want to go, and what changes need to be brought in order to bring that part of the chart into alignment? And how can things be brought into alignment so that they can actually support stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart? That is a primary goal, a primary objective during this month of Scorpio that has been inaugurated, kickstarted by the new moon in Scorpio earlier today. And even though Venus and Mercury, Venus is in Sagittarius, encoding two important aspects into this new moon. Mercury is getting ready to move into Sagittarius, getting ready to trine the North Node. Mars is getting ready to trine the North Node when he moves into Leo. Even though the seemingly opportunity-laden part of the charts Sagittarius and Leo supporting Aries, where the North Node is. Those aspects are brewing and occurring given the fact that it is the month of Scorpio. Greater priority out of all of the, it's a little bit like focus on the opportunities and they'll be brewing, but really you're gonna, when the sequence is that Venus goes first, then Mercury, and then the new moon occurs, it is this month of Scorpio where action will be taken. Opportunities may come up, something may come up in the next 48 to 72 hours. Some subtle but unmistakable. It's a new moon, it is not an eclipse. Unmistakable. Something could come up in the next 48 to 72 hours. In some cases over the next couple of weeks, that makes you feel like, this is going to provide the key. This is an opportunity. This is something I can explore. This is the next step to bring the Scorpio part of the chart into alignment with my goals and to start to make changes here that will help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. And this action is important because as the planets move into Sagittarius and explore opportunities, the new moon in Sagittarius on November the 30th squares Saturn. Those opportunities can be leaned into more effectively and capitalized on more effectively if the Pisces part of the chart is more stable. Even though you have a new moon in Scorpio that is trining Saturn, a harmonious aspect, it is November that is going to have a more tumultuous, change-oriented. I think if we were to use November and December the right way, November, the first 3 weeks of November, Mercury is still direct. And the tarot card for November is the Wheel of Fortune. Whatever it is that the eclipses want us to release in the Libra part of the chart so we can move towards the Aries part of the chart, which is going to be built on when Mercury trines the North Node and Mars trines the North Node by the middle of this month. And remember that Mars North Node trine is encoded into that full moon in Taurus, conjunct Uranus, trine Pluto. This is it. You may feel the changes in December, but the changes start now. And you're going to feel them. This is going to be the month where there's opportunity brewing, but the biggest priority, for some reason, bringing the Scorpio part of the chart into alignment and in such a way that it helps stabilize the Pisces part of the chart is absolutely the order of the day. And whatever Venus asked, the opportunities to provide it. And whatever you have been thinking and communicating about, now after the new moon in Scorpio, moves into the realm of action. And some of this action is going to be related and connected to the series of changes that allows us to move in the desired direction, signified and symbolized by the North Node eclipses in Aries since March, April of 2023, Jupiter's transit through Taurus and the conjunction with Uranus on April the 20th of this year, and Jupiter's current transit through Gemini, ending a 12-13-year cycle, creating a 12-13-year cycle there, in that order of the priority. We're being led to capitalize on opportunities for whatever reason, and the reason is mysterious with the North Node. We are feeling called to, and we're feeling pulled towards developing, leaning into the North Node, the Aries part of our chart. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April the 20th sets up a 12-13 month period after that of change that will allow us to move in the direction that is true for us in the Taurus part of the chart. And Jupiter, of course, is ending and creating starting a 12-13-year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart. Those are the expansive, forward-moving parts of the chart. And with the eclipses, these last eclipses, which give the impression that now that we're in this final phase between September of this year to the end of the first week of June of next year, to make the most out of leaning towards these opportunities, particularly the North Node eclipses in Aries, the Aries part of the chart, and releasing what we need to in the Libra part of the chart. The eclipses and the nature of the change that we're contemplating and the various parts of the chart that are going to be in dialogue with these changes, it's going to feel like things are getting narrower and narrower and narrower, so that there's greater urgency built into releasing what we need to release in the Libra part of the chart. And for some reason, right now, during November, the light is thrown, a significant part of the light is thrown into the Scorpio part of the chart to say, everything here in alignment with where you want to go? What actions need to be taken here to help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart? Do it now, so that by the time the opportunities move into a space of action in December related to the Sagittarius part of the chart, and the new moon in Sagittarius squares Saturn in Pisces, not trines it, make sure that the Scorpio and the Pisces part of the chart have supported each other and brought the Pisces part of the chart, have contributed to greater stability in the Pisces part of the chart, so that by the time you're availing of and building on and acting on opportunities related to the Sagittarius part of the chart that are in direct alignment with the Aries part of the chart, where it is that we're trying to head and what we're trying to capitalize on, where we're trying to lean into, and our desired area or direction of movement and growth, make sure that you make the most of this month of Scorpio trining Saturn in Pisces and stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. So by the time you get there, things are actually stable in the Pisces part of the chart, so that things are more balanced. You can act related to the Sagittarius part of the chart and not have the Pisces part of the chart be at such a high-pitched crisis that it's just sort of flooding over everything or creating greater stress. When you look at that video I did about Scorpio transits, this is kind of the gist of, you can look at that for greater details. The planets going over Scorpio, opposing Uranus, trining, it develops that with greater focus. But as far as this new moon is concerned, that is the gist of this new moon. A month of action related to the Scorpio part of your chart. And there is some connection, because by the time we get to, remember, the aspects made as the personal planets go over the Scorpio part of the chart, they trine Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces. They trine Mars in Cancer, while Mars is in Cancer, and they oppose Uranus in Taurus. These actions in the Scorpio part of the chart will, if they are bringing things into alignment in the Scorpio part of the chart, will contribute to us being able to move in the direction we need to, that is individual to us, our own breadcrumbs in the Taurus part of the chart, and contribute to the changes that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction made on April the 20th, and that are going to continue to roll out till early June of next year. So the big questions are, as we head into this month of action in the Scorpio part of the chart, and as we remain alert over the next couple of weeks, but especially over the next 72 hours, about what is coming up, what subtle, unmistakable opportunities, messages related to the Scorpio part of the chart. How can we what actions do we need to take to bring the Scorpio part of the chart into alignment with where it is that we want to go, what it is that we want to do, what we need to do to experience greater stability, and how to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. That is the priority. That is the question. That is where the actions go. There is a certain amount of energy. Let's talk about the 5 different aspects that are encoded into this. Let's talk first about Mercury opposing Pluto on November the 3rd. We did a video on this yesterday. And the one thing that related to that video on this transit I really want to emphasize, because I don't know if I emphasized it enough, is to, as I think I did, there is an air of conflict, challenge, competition in the air with it. Pluto is trying to finish up his transit through Capricorn since 2008 by November the 19th. And just as he's getting ready to be done, Mars opposes him for the first of 3 times. Now, as I said, there may be something that Mars in Cancer needs to do to support Pluto in Capricorn, and certainly by the time we get to the full moon in Uranus that trines Pluto, the energy is more supportive. But right now, this week, as we head to the 3rd, you may have a sense or a feeling of something or someone getting in the way of the natural flow of things. And you have to gauge, as I said yesterday, number one, when it comes to conflict and assertion and setting boundaries, my inclination with Mars opposing Pluto is just be careful that you don't do it in a way that it backfires on you or that it explodes on you. Because with Mars opposing Pluto, we can get worked up sometimes or become a little bit rash or assertive or aggressive in a way that we take an action only to realize that it's made the situation worse, because we may have sought to clarify something, or may have sought to express something, but it can sometimes alarm the other person so that they feel like they need to take some action to protect themselves, but part of that action then backfires onto us. It can make things worse. So my inclination now, increasingly, when Mars is squaring Pluto, or Mars is opposing Pluto, is to take things down a notch a little bit. And to, in fact, certain astrologers believe that even when it comes to the eclipses, do less. Don't inadvertently add to the drama. And with Mars opposite Pluto or Mars square Pluto, I'm inclined to feel the same way. You might become sensitive to, you might be picking up on this opposition, power struggle, preventing, because Pluto's transformations are always meant to be beneficial to us. Pluto's trying to help us. So if we're really attached to something, or someone is very attached to keeping us in an untransformed state, then we can feel that power struggle. And you can always act and clarify and set boundaries once the opposition is done and Mars moves into Leo. Mars is already slow. He's going to become stationary in November, late November, early December. December the 6th, he goes retrograde. And when Mars is retrograde, we're not going to be so direct in our conflict. So I just wanted to emphasize that there could be some energy as we head into November 3rd or a little bit after, and Mars and Pluto are the 2 rulers of this new moon. And Mars is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon is in Scorpio, and Mars and the moon are in mutual reception, which means that they are in houses ruled by the other party. With Pluto in Capricorn, Capricorn ruled by Saturn, Saturn in Pisces, Pisces ruled by Neptune. Neptune is in Pisces, so he's one of the dispositors of the chart on that end of the rulership. And Jupiter is the other ruler of Pisces. Jupiter's in Gemini. Gemini ruled by Mercury. Mercury's in Scorpio, and we're back to this kind of Moon-Mars dispositorship and this Neptune plus Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter kind of, the parts of the chart that I talked about where the aspects are active and encoded are kind of where the ruling and dispositing planets are sitting. With Mars opposing Pluto and that important aspect encoded into the new moon, all of November is going to have this Mars needs to serve Pluto. Pluto will win. Pluto will win. Pluto will win. Pluto will win. But out of all the planets that can oppose Mars in terms of the personal planets, it's oppose Pluto, those squares and oppositions are the most formidable. And the biggest thing in November that we have to watch for as we try and bring things into alignment in the Scorpio part of the chart to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, we want to help Pluto complete his transit through Capricorn successfully by November 19th. And luckily, just before he leaves, he has a full moon conjuncting Uranus, trining him, supporting him. But the first couple of weeks, and during the month of November, as I said, change and transformation is very much in the air. November is probably the most transformational month of this year if we take the right actions. And the biggest challenge to it is, of course, our resistance to change. Sticking to the comfort zone, not being able to disrupt and manage our routines. And this is where the universe, through all these aspects and transits, may create a sense of urgency that makes that change more inevitable. Has to be leaned into, has to be done, has to be managed. Things have to change. Things have to work differently. Some of these changes could disrupt the status quo. Some of these changes need to be adopted to make the status quo more stable, less stagnant. Less fruitless, more fruitful, more fertile, more relevant. Now, what it is that occurs that will help you to stabilize the Scorpio part of the chart. Remember, it's all a journey. And one of the things with the Mars-Pluto opposition you have to look at is if something shows up that makes you feel like, this kind of goes against what Pluto is doing, but if it makes you feel like, well, let me capitalize on this, because it will actually ultimately help with the Plutonian transformation. Let's say Pluto's trying to finish up a transformation in the Capricorn part of the chart, and all of a sudden, in order to complete it, you feel like you don't have the resources to do it, or you need something, the missing pieces that are required. And Mars, as he opposes Pluto, provides an opposite or a seemingly opposing opportunity that you can lean into to get what you need to help Pluto complete the transformation. Then that could be an effective way to tap into this opposition. But you'll be very aware that if I overcommit or overgo into Mars's side, then that transformation will not be complete. So I've got to use what Mars is doing in the Cancer part of the chart and the opportunities it's providing to support Pluto, the Plutonian transformation. The other thing is that even if an opportunity like that comes along, there could be forces or people or something at play that tries to, again, oppose, prevent, hold on to, resist that Plutonian transformation, or the change that is in the air with the eclipses and releasing what you need to release in the Libra part of the chart. And so the most important question we can ask is, what do we need to do? What changes do we want to make? And be open that the outcome and the answers to those may not be. It could very well be that you know what you feel or what direction you need to move towards. And you may very well feel like, I know which direction I'm trying to move in. I've been trying to move in this direction since March, April, May, June, July, August, September of last year. And the universe made it very clear between October and March what I needed to release. And I'm in a place where I know I need to do it. But at the same time, there could be a path between now and the end of the first week of June that feels more like a twisty, turny thing as opposed to a kind of a direct line. It may feel like, well, let me do this for the next few whatever to stabilize this part, and let me do this, and let me do this. It's a little bit like moving multiple things on the board to get from A to Z, as opposed to just kind of walking down a straight path. And with the Mars-Pluto opposition, there's a whole video on this yesterday. Encoded into November is supporting the transitions. Something has to change as we enter November. And what you do to support that change may potentially surprise you. You may think, well, I was going to do this, but actually this is going to help stabilize something. And if this doesn't come through, then I have to do this. There are crossroads, there are potential opportunities, there are potential. It's all a question of, can I stabilize where I'm at? And that will actually help me get to where it is that I want to get to. Or do I need to release where I'm at because nothing is coming through to support that? And that release means that the transformation to the direction in which I want to move is underway. And it's going to take whatever I need to muster to stabilize and create this new. And so how do I start to design the new assertively? And throughout November, there may be an intimation of an awareness, because the Mars-Scorpio opposition is encoded into this month. But I think it's going to be particularly heaviest in the first week of November. But it's encoded into the month of November. A feeling of what forces could be working against my transfer. Some people, it very well may be opposition, competition. Sometimes it can be other people being a hurdle, and it has nothing to do with you. Let's say you are interviewing for a job or a position that inherently has some sort of change because a new group is being forced something, and that puts other people's noses out of joint. It has nothing to do with you, but something about that may slow down or may not work out because there's an internal alignment that people have to go through that they have not gone through, and that hiring you and other people kind of creates this internal discussion. So it has nothing to do with you personally, but something gets in the way of that. And these kinds of occurrences are signs. If that went through, then I could do this in order to effect the change and stabilize this. But if that doesn't come through, then I've got to do this. Change is in the air, and you're going to be asked to, as I say, bang on 10 different doors, and the one that's meant for you will open. But you've got to be in action to create that change. And somewhere there might be an awareness of what is opposing or creating hindrances or competition or challenges. And the Mars, I gave you this date yesterday, I think, didn't I? I think I did. The Mars square, where did I write this down, my darlings? Mars squared Pluto on June the 11th. Did something happen around June the 11th? Mars conjuncted Pluto on February the 14th. Mars squared squared Pluto on June the 11th. And now, of course, first of 3 oppositions on November the 3rd. So something from that June the 11th date could be reaching a kind of an oppositional intensification between now and April the 26th, I believe. Yeah. Now, Mercury and Mars trine each other. Mercury, Scorpio, Mars in Cancer. The planet of thought and communication before he leaves to enter Sagittarius, and right after he trines Neptune. creates a harmonious conversation with Mars in Cancer that is also just trined Neptune. So part of that water sign, how are planets in Scorpio and Mars in Cancer helping support, again, helping support and stabilize. And Mars is about the pursuit of goals. Mars also, it's not just Pluto being checked by Mars. Mars is also being checked by Pluto with this opposition. Luckily, there's a trine with Mercury. Whatever Mercury has been thinking about in Scorpio, what needs to be done to bring it in alignment? What do I need to do? What do I need to communicate? Supporting action and boundary setting in the Cancer part of the chart. A very interesting, very fascinating, very complicated, you know, it's a little bit like all the dukes and the knights are all around a banquet table, and there are different agendas, and it's like who's aligned with who, and what's supporting what, and what's not supporting the other, and there's alignment in the air, and there's opportunity in the air, but there's also the potential for it's a very dynamic, complicated set of, so that when you actually sit down at the banquet table and you're ready to eat and everybody's ready to eat and there's a certain amount of jollity in the air, but there's also an awareness of who's supporting who and who has what agenda and what is trying to be worked on where. And it could be two different sets of energies. Mars opposite Pluto is a power struggle. And the power struggle could even be between you and yourself. Resisting change, actively creating and supporting change. And change can be really complicated and hard when you don't have a final destination in front of you. Then what change means is, what am I doing with what I know needs to be changed and managed and stabilized? What actions do I, the best I can do is take the actions that I need to take, but there's an urgency now towards taking those actions. And if it has to do with going from A to Z, as I've said, some of those actions can be cleaning up where you are so that you are more mobile, so that once that destination becomes clear, you are in a stabler place. The status quo, the stagnant status quo, is no longer feasible. So you have two choices. Either to stabilize the status quo and make it fruitful and fertile, or else to release it. And during November, it will become clear which of those two options are in the cards for you. And Mercury may be trining Mars tomorrow. Something in the realm of, and that could be a separate Mars and Cancer, each planet, where Mars is pursuing goals, where Mars is setting boundaries, where Mars is taking action, where Mars is opposing Pluto. Is it the same set of events? Is it a different set of events related to Mars and Cancer? You're going to need to have a sense of your chart to really determine that. It could be that Mars and Mercury trining each other has much more to do with activities related to the Scorpio and the Cancer part of our charts, trying to harmonize to help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. There's a lot in the air about stabilizing. There's a lot about there's a Leo communication cycle that is underway till December the 5th. There's what needs to be released in the Libra part of the chart. October 2nd, week before, week after. December 2nd, week before, week after. Resonant of that South Node eclipse in Libra. We were not able to release last year, most of us, between October 14th of last year and March 24th of this year. Now it is imperative What in the Scorpio part of the chart needs to be brought into alignment? For the next 3 weeks, the sun continues to be in Scorpio. 2 weeks from now, he opposes the moon and Uranus in Taurus. Full spotlight, full awareness in the Scorpio part of the chart as action needs to be taken with the new moon and the month underway in Scorpio now, till November the 30th. Venus is already trying the North Node in Sagittarius. Mercury is getting ready to do the same. Mars is getting ready to trine the North Node from Leo in a couple of weeks' time. Opportunity. How do we move towards the Aries part of the chart? What is brewing in the Sagittarius part of the chart, the Leo part of the chart to support that? Paving the way in such a way that by the time the sun enters Sag around November the 22nd and Mercury is going retrograde on November the 26th, and these transits through Sag, most importantly, not only are trining the North Node in Aries and Chiron in Aries, but are also opposing Jupiter in Gemini. What needs to happen? What is happening in the Sagittarius part of the chart that will help Jupiter achieve his aims? And again, it's an opposition. Is it an opposing principle that needs to be honored? Is it something happens that threatens Jupiter's ability to complete the ending, to make this ending a new beginning in the Gemini part of the chart? Is it something that can be taken advantage of, even though it seems like it's an opposing principle? But it's going to help Jupiter. Whatever's happening in the Sagittarius part of the chart will be asked to yield to Jupiter in Gemini. Mercury, when he's retrograde, will trine Chiron, will square Saturn, and will oppose Jupiter 3 times from Sagittarius. Pluto's finishing up his transit in Capricorn till November 19th. Probably the most important astrological event. Complete that transition from 2008, that transformation of the Capricorn part of the chart. Saturn wanting to stabilize. Saturn heavy, making his presence felt. What has to happen in the Scorpio part of the chart, Cancer part of the chart, to support Saturn, to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, Neptune in Pisces, the North Node in Chiron in Aries, Uranus in Taurus. Going to play a critical role by the time we get to the full moon in Taurus on the 15th of November. All these energies in different parts of the chart contributing to this. It is time. There's a reason why you are not going to feel stable again till mid to end April to the end of the first week of June. And the eclipses are wanting to move us in a certain direction. The outcome is unclear. We don't know whether you're going to get to the direction you need to get to. With the North Node, you never know. With the North Node, you never know whether what is being presented to you is shiny enough so you long to move in that direction, but ultimately you'll just get something from it. And you'll get what you need from it. But with the North Node, there's always this undertow of disappointment as well that has to be processed, because it is that disappointment that then propels us into wanting the next thing when the North Node moves over into Pisces. But you cannot back away from, you cannot ignore the call of the North Node. There's something that needs to be leaned into and developed and explored in the Aries part of the chart. It's necessary for our growth and our development. But that next eclipse that happens there happens on March the 29th of next year, while Venus and Mercury are retrograde. A lot of us are not going to feel that eclipse till the end of the first week of May. And we're going to feel that eclipse moving forward and the presence of that eclipse with much greater clarity by the time we get to April, May of next year. And in fact, you may have had opportunities related to that Aries part of the chart come up with this last eclipse cycle on April the 11th. New moon solar eclipse in Aries. There was a new moon in Taurus a month later. A few weeks after Jupiter and Uranus conjuncted. Then a new moon in Gemini as Jupiter entered Gemini. All that expansiveness in April, May, June of this year, it may be that you don't see the results of where it is that was meant to lead you till you get to the middle of April to the end of the first week of June of next year. And there may be a divine plan around all this. Right now, the focus is on releasing what you need to release. And how that affects this new moon in Scorpio, how can matters related to the Scorpio part of the chart, the house occupied in Scorpio, be brought into alignment with where you want to go, and in a way that it helps stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. And you may be entertaining various options. And the options are between, do I align by stabilizing and making the current status quo fruitful, or do I acknowledge that if the status quo cannot be stabilized and it is stagnant and it needs to be released, then I cooperate with that and I release it. And leaning into the change and dealing with the resistance to the change and the chaos that can bring and the opportunities that are being conceived with these trines to the North Node, what the full moon conjuncting Uranus trine Pluto is going to be all about by the middle of this month. The first 3 weeks of November are for some people, change brings stress. Now, if something happens that helps you stabilize the status quo in a way that's virtual, then that's an easier change to deal with. But if something needs to be released, and basically what this new moon is doing is, in a sense, you know how when you have automatic doors, you have a door jam. If this new moon is basically kicking that door jam so that the change is underway, then you can't stand in the way of that door hitting the frame. You're going to get hurt. You've got to get with the program. What happens over the next 3 weeks that helps you? It's an individual thing for each person. But as I said, again, the overall question, what is going on in the Scorpio part of the chart? Venus, when she was here, asked the question of alignment. Mercury has been putting you in a thinking and a communicating space around it. Now it's time for action. We talked about the Mars-Pluto opposition. We talked about the new moon trining Saturn. We talked about Mercury trining Mars. Mars getting ready to conjunct the North Node. Mercury getting ready to conjunct the North Node talks to that. Something brewing. The opportunity in the Aries part of the chart. But Mars, during his retrograde, something needs to be closed out in the Cancer part of the chart so that you can land more securely into the Leo part of the chart. And Mars's overwhelmingly positive aspects while he's retrograde, trining Saturn, trining Neptune, trining the North Node, 1 square to Chiron, but even that is dynamic because Chiron is in Aries, healing, completing, bringing back to us, bringing ourselves back to us in the Aries part of the chart. The new moon solar eclipse on April 11th of this year was conjunct Chiron to the minute, not just the degree. A lot of this year with regard to what direction we're meant to move in has been about us examining what in childhood in the Aries part of the chart separated us from ourselves. And how can we start to incorporate decision-making and forward movement from a much more healed and completed place, as we were when we were sure of ourselves, from a less conditioned place, for a more authentic place, for a more healed place. Venus on November the 3rd trines Chiron in Aries from Sagittarius. She's currently asking the questions through the Sagittarius part of the chart. What in the Sagittarius part of the chart needs to be brought into alignment with where you want to go? And how can that alignment help support moving in the direction of the North Node in Aries and healing what you need to heal with Chiron in Aries? And how can whatever is being contemplated in the Sagittarius part of the chart help Jupiter create his new beginning in the Gemini part of the chart? So you have this, but right now it's just Venus. Right now, Venus is the planet, and that video I did on the transits through the Sagittarius part of the chart will explain more about this. But right now, it's Venus asking the question. Mercury enters Sagittarius tomorrow. And these matters in the Sagittarius part of the chart move into a realm of communication, mental, verbal, in writing, us processing, us trying to make sense of what's going on in the Sagittarius part of the chart. Then Mercury goes retrograde on the 26th. On the 22nd, the Sun enters Sagittarius. 26th, Mercury goes retrograde. And on September the 30th, November the 30th, we have the new moon in Sagittarius. And a retrograde Mercury will be opposing, getting ready to oppose a retrograde Jupiter at that time. And we'll cover that in that video. I'm already at the 55-minute mark. I don't want to delay this too much. I think you get a sense of this new moon. The opportunity part of the chart is brewing with Venus, trying to create that healing with Chiron. Saying what can be done in the Sagittarius part of the chart? Where does the collective, where do each of us want to go? Where do we want to head? How can the Sagittarius part of the chart be brought into alignment? Venus is in that contemplation. She's already done that contemplation in Scorpio. Mercury's pretty much been in communication mode and thinking mode and processing mode in Scorpio. And now it's time for action in the Scorpio part of the chart to bring it into alignment with where we want to go in such a way that it can help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. And the answers to the question of, do I help maintain do I stabilize the status quo and make it fruitful? Or is the universe basically saying, no, get ready to release? And there could be, with this opposition, Mars-Pluto opposition, a kind of a feeling of, I don't know which way to go. There's an opposition. There's something might be coming in from Mars as I gave the example yesterday, if Pluto is trying to transform your 4th house and Mars is in the 10th house, a career opportunity could come on that makes you feel like, oh, this is taking me a little bit off course, but can I use this to help Pluto complete his transformation? Or there are a few things over the next week to 2 weeks that will really make it clear just whether that door is accelerating to shut or whether you'll actually be able to put the door jamb back and keep it stable in a way that actually fits into your life. And Libra and Scorpio are next to each other. And for some of us, there's a relationship between the house occupied by Libra and the house occupied by Scorpio. In certain cases, there's a correlation between successive houses, the 1st and the 2nd house, the 3rd and the 4th house, the 7th and the 8th house, the 9th and the 10th house. So then the question becomes, what does stabilizing the Scorpio part of the chart have to do with releasing what we need to in the Libra part of the chart? But for those of you who don't know your chart and can't engage in these kinds of metaphysical conversations that I'm posing to you here, the larger question, if you do know which house is occupied by Scorpio in your chart, it's a month of action in that part of the chart to bring it into alignment in such a way that you can also stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. And if you don't know your chart at all, the question is, you should right about now be feeling like the time to sit on the fence is over. Change is afoot. Am I going to be able to stabilize the status quo in such a way that it is fruitful? Or am I going to have to understand that release is underway, in which case I've got to figure out what is going to be needed to replace what is being released. And how do I do that as elegantly as possible and as securely as possible? But this idea of resistance to change, competition, conflict, not getting in our own way, being careful, not being rash, not being attracted to making karmically problematic decisions, actions, it's going to kind of haunt us and be with us during November. I mean, we have an election on Tuesday. heading to that full moon. We'll see where that takes us in the middle of all these retrogrades coming up. I am doing, oh my God, I wish I had announced this in the beginning of this reading, but you know, first and foremost, I'm recording this deliberately. So I yesterday announced that the first 15 people to write to me who are interested in getting my normal reading for $100 will get the reading for $100. And I explained that that's really a discount primarily for people who reside in the United States and the EU, because the way the rates are and the offerings are, that actually represents a discount. For those of you who wrote in, please know that I'm doing this video after replying to any inquiries that came related to that. There are, of course, still slots open. It's been not even 24 hours since and it's not like I'm communicating to people over email, left, right, and center. I'm just putting it on these videos. So if my normal readings last 60 to 75 minutes, and typically I go over the transits of the time and the eclipses and where we're coming from and where we're headed and that kind of stuff. And I like to talk for the first half of the reading without knowing what's going on in your lives, so that I can give you a clean interpretation of that. And then I open it up for questions. But for example, one of the people who wrote to me was very clear about what they want done. If someone wants synastry, or if someone wants astrocartography to some extent, or if someone has certain questions that they want to be looked at, it's totally fair to kind of articulate that as well, because at least that way I enter the reading with a certain focus, knowing what it is that's on people's minds. Now, you will get to that anyway, even if I do my normal stuff for the first half hour. The second part of the reading allows for questions, etc. So the bottom line is that's sort of the format. If you'd like to avail of that for $100, the first 15 people to take those slots will get it for that. A few inquiries have come in. I've responded to all those inquiries. When I do the weekly or the monthly overview video, I'll kind of remind you guys of that. My email address is in the description box below. So if you want to do a reading with me, or want to understand what the options are, you can use that to communicate with me. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and if you want to, and if you like my content, next to the subscribe button, bell icon, hover over that wiggly bell on top, click on that. You'll be notified whenever I do a new video. The thanks button underneath this video, you can use that to contribute to the channel. If you feel inclined, feel free to comment or like the video. It gives it greater circulation on YouTube. Happy new moon. I definitely feel more energized after the new moon. I don't know about you. I actually felt energized yesterday once the moon entered Scorpio. It's still, before a new moon, the energy does flatten out. And especially before a new moon, when the moon is going over the sign of the new moon before, it really has that kind of, you feel like, your energy has entered a kind of 12th house, the final house before the next new moon occurs, and feels like you've entered a kind of a dungeon before coming out into the light again. The moon is still dark, but on the other side of the new moon. Yeah, folks, welcome to November. We've been waiting for this month. We've been waiting for this month. You're not going to be able to, most of us are not going to be able to stick to the status quo anymore. In connection with especially the eclipses on the Aries-Libra axis. And there's some sort of conversation, something about these personal planets going through Scorpio and Sagittarius, absolutely playing a really important, they're playing a role in this transformation that is unfolding. And so what do you need to do to bring the Scorpio part of it? And we're no longer in the realm of contemplation and communication. We're now in the realm of action. Action will be needed, as I said, and it's either stabilize where you're at or release it. And you don't need to release something you can stabilize if it's going to work for you. All right, I will leave it at that. Another video to come tomorrow so I can feel like I'm back on track. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you.